Good Wednesday afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock, time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Browns done with practice out in Berea, getting ready to face the Miami Dolphins down in Miami, 1 o'clock on Sunday. Some news from out in Berea. A couple of guys back on the field practicing in Denzel Ward as well as Wyatt Teller. Some guys that are not practicing, Perion Winfrey illness. David Njoku with the ankle. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah with the knee. Perion Winfrey, as I mentioned, along with Emerson illness. Now, Jadeveon Clowney, Myles Garrett, Amari Cooper, Joel Bitonio, all kind of on maintenance-type days riding the bikes. Nothing to be worried about. Let's welcome in Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. So, Tim, they haven't, again, said that Teller and Denzel Ward are definitely playing, but they're trending that way. Kevin Stefanski did say that Ward continues to meet the milestones that you need to get out of the concussion protocol and get back on the field. Good news, especially considering you're facing the Miami Dolphins.
If there was a week to get Denzel Ward back from concussion, this is the week to do it because, I mean, you look at what the Miami Dolphins present. I already look at Tua Tagovailoa. If healthy, he's one of the best quarterbacks in football right now. And last couple games, thrown for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. Looking at the stats, Tyreek Hill in 9 games already has 1,100 yards receiving. So he's pretty much he's picking up right where he left off in Kansas City. He's uncoverable pretty much no matter who you throw out there. So obviously, the more guys you have that can cover him in certain situations, the better. And having Denzel Ward back, if you get him, would just be massive because if you're going up against him and Jalen Wilder, you got to find a way to at least slow one of those two guys down. You're not going to be able to stop them both, but if you could take one of them away for portions of the game and make it difficult for them, then I think that's that's the best chance to have some success against this team. But, you know, Miami's explosive offensively. The fact that the Browns are getting healthier on defense, it's a good sign for Sunday and their prospects to try and steal one.
Take a look at this. So this is from Dan Murphy's Twitter, one of the guys that works for the Browns PR. Kevin Stefanski. The Browns are 2-0 following their bye in the 9 seasons before Kevin Stefanski's hire, which was in 2020. Browns were 2-7 following their bye week. So there you go, 2-0 coming off the bye in the Kevin Stefanski era. Had an additional week. You knew who you were playing, so there are things that line up for the Browns.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this is a tough offense to go against, and having that extra week to prepare is not a bad thing. The fact that he's 2-0 in games off of bye shows you that he's got an ability to adjust. We know that he's pretty good at making those adjustments when needed. And, you know, this is definitely going to be a tricky matchup. If they go and win this game and Stefanski goes to 3-0, then all of a sudden you're starting to realize, you know, maybe Stefanski understands, you know, how to make adjustments. And, you know, the idea of, you know, when you're on the bye, you're self-scouting, that you're trying to figure out exactly the things that have gone wrong with this team and trying to make adjustments to them. And, you know, we've seen the defense coming off probably its 2 best games of the season, another week to kind of figure out, you know, what needs to change or whatever. So we'll see how those changes kind of pan out on Sunday. If, you know, they're continuing to trend upward as they really had the last 2 games, or if those are just kind of aberrations. And, you know, we know that they can get up for those AFC North games. They're coached very well against those teams, but against the other teams, the rest of the schedule they would have problems with. We'll find out an answer to that, I think, on Sunday.
Yeah, and when you look at it, Dolphins and Bills, the next 2, those are kind of divisional games because those are 2 of the teams you're going to be battling with come playoff time, as far as are you going to get into the playoffs in the AFC. Jacoby Brissett talked about what the Browns can take away from that last game before the bye week against the Bengals that enabled them to be successful.
I think we played really good complementary football in all 3 phases. And I think we came out with the understanding of the magnitude of that game. I thought we, you know, prepared well. And I think I felt like a little different energy going out of the locker room into the stadium, like for the first snap, and it held true throughout 4 quarters. And I think we played a full 60-minute game. It was our first time, I think, of the year ending the game and taking the knee. And, that's huge to be able to do that in the NFL.
And Tim, at 3-5, they still do have a shot at the playoffs. But all these games are now, in essence, playoff caliber type games.
Yeah, and I think the pressure is really going to be on Jacoby Brissett right now. He's got 3 games left before Deshaun Watson comes back. He absolutely has to win one of the 3 games to get them into a playoff position. He simply has to. I think the ideal scenario is win 2. If they can somehow win all 3, and with Josh Allen's injury situation being a question mark, if he doesn't play, all of a sudden that throws that game open a little bit. But I feel like this 3-game stretch, you cannot hand the ball back to Deshaun Watson at 3-8, because then at that point, your season's basically over. If you at least get it to him, at 4-7 or even 5-6, you still feel pretty good about your chances, because the schedule lines up. I know you got the divisional games after 3 divisional games in those final 5 weeks of the season, I believe, with Deshaun Watson and back, but by then, if you're the Browns, you have to hope the rust is knocked off. And if it is, considering how well the offense has played without Deshaun Watson, you would think that with that X factor, that ability to get the big play because we know Watson can throw a lot of touchdowns, that could open up the offense even more and really get this team into an even better place on offense. So you would imagine, 4-2, 5-1 can be realistic, but I mean, to have any shot at the playoffs, this team's got to take care of the business in these next 3 games and at least come away with 1 win. If it's 2, then that's even better.
Yeah, I'm of the mindset they need to get 2 of these next 3 to have a legitimate chance. All right, ESPN's midseason report for the Browns. What we know, what we don't know, and stat that define the first half. So what we know, Browns have one of the top rushing offenses in all of football. What we don't know, how good is the Browns' defense? Series of rough performances to begin the season and some late game collapses. Stat that defined the first half, the Browns' defense ranked 30th in defensive EPA, minus 13.08 in the fourth quarter. And that flat out isn't going to get it done. So obviously the most concerning of that is the fourth quarter EPA, expected points allowed, and a negative 13 is third worst in the league.
Yeah, I mean, we know the fourth quarter is high leverage winning time in the NFL, and you look at that, basically kind of spells it out there. I mean, what happened against the Jets was historic. I mean, we're talking about a 1 in 2,200 situation where they have that 13-point lead with less than 2 to go and completely cough it up, because of coverage issues and special teams issues. It just was a mess. In Atlanta, I think that defense kind of collapsed because, obviously Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney didn't play in that game. And I think they might have just ran out of gas in that situation where they didn't have the bodies to really get it done. But, that's got to be the mentality is in the fourth quarter, you simply got to find a way to take it up to another level. I mean, first 3 quarters, yeah, you can play well and have a lead, but fourth quarter, you still got to. That's when all the high leverage plays happen, like I said, and they just got to find a way to elevate themselves in that fourth quarter. If they can do that, especially on defense, with the closer that you have in Nick Chubb at running back, especially these first 3 games. Like you said, 2-1 is probably something they need to have to feel like they have a realistic shot at getting into the playoffs with Deshaun Watson and quarterback. It's got to start with, playing well in the fourth quarter and winning the fourth quarter. Every team stresses it, but the ones who do it on a regular basis, it's no surprise that those are the teams that are usually high atop the standings.
Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. We'll also hear from Jacoby Brissett, Sports4CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
continue talking Browns with Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hello, die-hard Browns fan, Tony Frost, calling once again. I just want to say this. In order for us to beat the Dolphins and the Bills, first of all, on offense, it's simple. Just run Chubb and Hunt, play action, Cooper, and Peoples-Jones, and Joku, or whoever the tight end is. And keep it simple. No more trick plays, none of that. And on defense, I heard Leroy Horde said we bull rush, but at the same time, just jump at Tua. We'll get it. Thank you very much.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails, Tim. I think that might be part of the self-scout. The flea flickers and the things that were gadget-type plays did not make the mark in the first half.
No, especially that Amari Cooper pass against the Bengals on Monday night. Obviously, that was kind of a surprising call. And, there's certain things have to go right for trick plays to work. Yeah, they're always fun to call. They're always fun to practice. But you only get really one chance to use them. And if it backfires, then, you're probably never running that play ever again in practice. So, yeah, I do think, with Jacoby Brissett, a quarterback, that's been the formula is, run the football, try and take pressure off of Jacoby Brissett as much as possible. It's helped that Amari Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones have played very well at receiver, that they've been able to get things done, that they've been able to make his life easier at quarterback. As I've said before, Jacoby Brissett's the type of quarterback that is at his best when the guys around him are playing well. And you can say that about Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. You can say that about Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones. You could really say that about the offensive line. They've really held him up, and he's been able to respond with some pretty good performances. But, it's going to be – you could say, you want to run the football and all those things. But as I said with the Chargers a few weeks ago, the Dolphins and the Bills are the type of teams that don't care necessarily about time of possession. They got such explosive offenses where they can have the ball for only a couple minutes and score pretty quickly because they have explosive players who can make those explosive plays. So it just comes down to just, doing what you do, and as a defense, finding a way to limit those big plays and seeing if you can bog up either of those offenses. It's not going to be an easy thing to do because you would expect both teams are going to get theirs, but it's going to come down to can you make those guys play a little bit in mud? And if you can shorten the game up a little bit, that might be their best chance to win.
So this is from Pro Football Focus, offensive line rankings. Eagles top-ranked offensive line in the NFL. Browns are ranked number 2. Bradley Chubb for the Dolphins played 54 snaps last week. I watched most of that game. It seemed like it was even fewer. Jalen Phillips is the Dolphins' biggest threat edge rusher, 25 pressures in the past 4 weeks. Tim, it's not a great Dolphins defense. Matter of fact, it's pretty bad Dolphins defense. They gave up 42 points to the Bears last week in that victory, 45-42. So you can score on them. The question is, can you stop their offense?
Yeah, I mean, that's the difference, I think, between the Dolphins and the Browns is, both teams I think they actually give up the same number of points per game at this point of the season, but the difference is the Dolphins can quick strike you back with Tua, Tyreek, and Jalen Waddle. They can do that so quickly that they can play in those shootouts. They're equipped to play in those shootouts because of the way Tua's playing. The Browns, with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback and Deshaun Watson until Deshaun Watson knocks the rust off, are not quite in that position yet. So that's part of what, having that explosive quarterback is, that you can get away with that. But, their defense is not very good. They don't really get after the quarterback that much. I think only about 17 sacks in 9 games, which is a big reason they traded for Bradley Chubb. So it's going to be interesting to kind of watch how this plays out. I mean, we've seen the Browns offensive line do a very good job protecting Jacoby Brissett for most of the season. Really, the only exception was the Baltimore game, in which the Ravens were just all over the Browns, blitzing. They were able to get to Jacoby Brissett a bunch of times, but that's the one bad game out of 8 they played. If they play as well in the other 7 games that they have against Miami, they play against Miami and Buffalo and Tampa, then maybe you can kind of start to see similar offensive performances, especially if they can run the ball the way they have the first half of the season.
So we've come to the part of the show that we have begun to term Nick Chubb is good, and a special edition of the Nick Chubb is good portion of the show. Jacoby Brissett will tell us why Nick Chubb is good.
There's so many things I can tell you about him. And the thing that it all comes back to is like it's no surprise. You know, the way he works, not only the videos that people see that him lifting all these weights, but, you know, every day in practice he's going to the touchdown. No matter how far we're back, he's running to the touchdown and running back for the next play. To where his success is no surprise. His style of running is no surprise. The things that he can do is no surprise. Obviously, you can't take it for granted because sometimes it's unhuman-like, but then when you get around and you're like, dang, man, like, this is what NFL players should be. This is what a professional athlete should be. And he does it day in and day out, no matter the circumstances. He's just that guy that you want in your locker room.
And he's the guy that Browns fans can't give the ball enough to in any given game.
Yeah, I'm convinced there's, games if the Browns could give Nick Chubb 40 carries a game, and some people might still say that's not enough. And I think that's a credit to just Nick Chubb's overall ability as a player. I mean, I've talked about it before that I think he's as complete a back as you're going to find in the NFL. And the fact that, the Browns have kept his workload down in the last couple of years means they could easily get an extra year or two out of Chubb compared to some of his counterparts out there. And the thing that sticks out about Chubb, and Jacoby basically said the best way, and I'll kind of paraphrase, obviously, talking about, his professional approach. I feel like he's the kind of player where if you got a kid out there that's working to become a professional athlete out there, Nick Chubb's the kind of guy you want to model. He's a guy that does his talking on the field. He has a professional approach. He doesn't really say a lot. And the things he does say, they carry a great weight, and he always plays with a lot of effort. He never takes carries off, never takes plays off, just kind of the ideal professional athlete. And I think that's the kind of player that, NFL teams can't get enough of. And when you combine that professionalism with his incredible talent and all those different things that Nick Chubb brings to the table, I mean, there's no surprise he's one of the best players in football. And, in a situation where the Browns have had to run a lot and have had to depend a lot on Nick Chubb, imagine where they would be without him right now.
This is from EPA, so it's expected points added. The top 5 offenses, expected points added per drive through 9 weeks. Number 1, Chiefs. Number 2, Bills. Number 3, Eagles. Those are pretty obvious. Those are 3 of the top teams in football right now. Now, the Browns are 4 and the Dolphins are 5. That's how good the offense has been. And the other thing that shows, Tim, is how bad the Browns' defense has been through the first 9 weeks, because those teams have like 1 or 2 losses, and the Browns are sitting there at 3 and 5 with a really efficient offense.
Yeah, if that defense was even closer to average, I mean, we're talking about a 4-4 team, maybe even a 5-3 team out of the bye, and I think that's what everybody kind of expected was going to happen with this football team, even with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. But you look at those top 3 teams on there, those are 3 of the best quarterbacks in football right now that they have. Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts. In fact, my power ranking is coming up on Thursday morning on cleveland.com. Spoiler alert, those guys have been my top 3 quarterbacks. They will be again. But to see the Browns at number 4 with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, that speaks to a lot of things. That speaks to the way out the offensive line is playing, how well Nick Chubb is playing, how efficient Amari Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones are when they get their opportunities, which are, of course, limited because you're not going to throw 40, 50 times with Jacoby Brissett like you're going to with Deshaun Watson. And it goes to, what I think people are kind of not giving Kevin Stefanski enough credit for is how he's calling the game. Like, I think he's done a very good job of getting the most out of Jacoby Brissett that you're going to get. I think he's done a good job of making life easier for him at certain times. There have been good calls. Obviously, when you got a quarterback that is almost an automatic on quarterback sneaks that makes 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 far easier decisions because Jacoby is such a big quarterback in those types of plays. But I think there's a lot of credit that I think Stefanski's play calling and what he's done to scheme up this offense, I think that's gone unnoticed. Just because you've seen the defense, just not be able to really stop much of anything, especially the first 6 games of the season. But, the offense and the way it's been, they're the reason it's 3-5. The defense, for as bad as it's been, if that defense is, like I said, if it's any better, we're talking about a team that's really realistically in the playoff spot, in the playoff picture, as opposed to being a couple games out of the bye week.
Tim Bielik, Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Tim.
Got it. Thanks for having me, guys. Have a good day.
Tim Bielik, make sure you check him out. Pages of the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we continue talking Browns. We'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Take a look at the giveaway takeaway, where the Browns sit relative to the NFL. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Maybe cliche, but there's no I in team. The only identity that matters is we. The collective effort to love thy neighbor is needed now more than ever. The responsibility behind pronouns such as I, me, and mine impact we, us, and ours. So understand that you make all the difference in the team. He, him, her, or she can't disturb our peace, since we control our destiny as student athletes. This is the power of pronouns.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. Time for us to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, I'm calling about the comments Mary Kay made the other day that she hopes that the Browns win the turnover battle in the second half of the season and that we really can't win without winning the turnover battle. She's optimistic, but I'm not very optimistic at all because our defenders don't turn around to intercept the ball. And Joe Woods has to teach these guys that they should turn around so they don't get the penalty and then have a chance to intercept the ball. And so they're not being taught that by Joe Woods. They haven't done it all year, and that's got to change. Thank you.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Cory Kinnan from Brownswire.com. Cory, I'm not sure, first time on the show, so we appreciate it. I'm not sure that it has anything to do with what Joe Woods is teaching. The guys aren't making the big splash plays on defense that they make, and it's a point of emphasis. What Mary Kay was pointing to, that the caller referenced, it's something along the lines of 78% of the time a team that wins the turnover battle wins a game in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, they've been a little bit better at it the past 2 weeks, but it hasn't been a significant margin by any means. So, I mean, there's reason for optimism by how they've been playing over the past 2 weeks, but you would definitely love to see that continue to increase a little bit.
Yeah, I would agree with that question. So let's take a look at how the giveaway takeaway shakes out as far as the NFL goes. Now, the top team, it's not going to be any surprise. The top team is the Eagles. They're plus 15. Ravens are plus 7. They're number 2. Cowboys and Vikings are plus 6. Those are the third teams. So those are all teams that are winning a lot of games. The Browns are tied for 25th at -4, and they're tied with the Steelers, Commanders, and Panthers, all teams that are struggling to win. You see the teams behind them, the Packers, the Rams, the Colts, and the Saints. Saints are -10 in the giveaway-takeaway battle. So that'll graphically show you teams that take the ball away win in the NFL. It gives you extra possessions is what, a takeaway gives you.
Yeah, so I tend to think, I don't think Jacoby Brissett is turning the ball over too much. I think he has had some turnovers where he's been forced to push the ball down the field when they are trying to drive late in the game, and you kind of know what has to be done. But I think that is more of an indicator of, we aren't getting turnovers on the defensive side of the ball. We're not getting a lot of interceptions, outside of, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah forcing a huge fumble against the Ravens. They got a turnover on that first drive against the Bengals as well. But for the most part, most of their turnovers are coming off strip sacks, which is cool. But you would like to see that number increase a little bit. Again, I think the offense has found a groove. They're a top 5 offense you could find a million metrics that would support that. So they're top 5 fringe, top 5 offense. So and again, most of those offensive turnovers that are contributing to that negative margin are coming down the stretch because the defense is putting the offense in position where they have to push the ball down the field late in games. So hopefully, again, we found some sort of stride. They didn't play terrible against the Ravens. They had a pulse, and they played extremely well against the Bengals. So again, I'm hoping that they maybe have found some stride and can kind of build off of that over the bye week.
Yeah, agree with you wholeheartedly as far as Ravens and Bengals go. You, again, Cory Kinnan from Brownswire.com, you did some midseason awards. Let's kind of run through them, and you can pick a couple that you really want to talk about. Offensive Player of the Year, running back Nick Chubb. I don't think anybody's going to argue with that. Defensive Player of the Year for the Browns, Myles Garrett. Rookie of the Year, Martin Emerson. Most improved tight end, David Njoku. Comeback quarterback, Jacoby Brissett. He's played really well. And, of course, the MVP would be Nick Chubb. Whenever we refer to Nick Chubb in a amazing stat, it's always the Nick Chubb is good portion of the show. So Nick Chubb is good.
Yeah. I mean, Derrick Henry said it best. He's the best on the planet. So, and when you can get Derrick Henry to say that about Nick Chubb, then we're looking pretty. We're looking good. So, I did have a lot of struggles there at the end on the MVPs deciding, is it Nick Chubb or is it Myles Garrett? Because nobody's going to argue that Myles Garrett is probably pound for pound one of the best players in the NFL. Nobody's going to argue that he plays a more important position, but at the end of the day, it comes down to points, and Nick Chubb has double-digit touchdowns already. Nick Chubb is the focal point of this offense. People know the Browns are going to run the football. Nobody hands the ball to their running backs more than the Browns do, and Nick Chubb still is at 10 touchdowns and pushing 1,000 yards through 8 games. So it's just hard to look at what he's done offensively and not say, yeah, he's the reason that Jacoby Brissett has had pressure, has had lighter boxes on those what I would call is the unpredictable downs. So first and 10 is unpredictable. You don't know if they're going to run or pass. Second mediums, there's a good chance that the Browns could run it, they could throw it. So the success that Nick Chubb has seen, even when the boxes haven't been favorable, have put the Browns in great positions to throw the football as well. So all of their offensive success has revolved around the threat that they have on the ground.
Another thing that you've written about, that we've talked about some on this show, just the way Ethan Posick has played at center. It was a guy was kind of an under-the-radar signing in the offseason. Nick Harris goes down, and he's been really good. How good do you think Posick has been?
I think he's been extraordinary. So it's kind of a weird trajectory for him, where he spent 5 years in Seattle and started 40-some games, but never really came away impressive. And obviously the Seahawks let him walk, so they weren't thrilled. But he comes to Cleveland and he's a top 5 center. I think PFF has him graded as their second best center overall, with only Creed Humphrey from the Chiefs above him. So he's been phenomenal. And I think he's put the Browns in a position where, if you would have told me that this summer that, they could let J.C. Tretter walk, Nick Harris could get injured on the first possession of the preseason and they'd be fine at center, I'd probably laugh at you. But that's kind of where we're at. And, Posick is only 27 years old. So now we're in a position where Nick Harris, who unfortunately suffered an injury, again, that first possession of the preseason game, might just be out of luck because, again, Posick is only 27. So at this point, I don't see how the Browns can just take that 1-year deal and let him walk and go somewhere else. I think they have to strongly consider what does a long-term deal look like with Ethan Posick, and what does that mean for Nick Harris? And unfortunately for Nick Harris, that just means he was on the bad end of a really bad circumstance.
Browns brought in a couple wide receivers, quarterback. They did sign Cyril Grayson yesterday. What do you know about him, and what jumps out about him?
Yeah, he's fast. He runs a 4.340, so he's fast. Again, he doesn't have a lot of experience. He's another LSU guy. They love those LSU guys. But he went undrafted in 2017. Did run a 4.340, but he's only 5'9", so he's a pretty small dude as well. Last year was really only the only season he's seen significant playing time with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He caught 2 touchdowns on 10 passes, about a little over 200 yards receiving from Tom Brady. But again, he's on the practice squad. I would say, they might elevate him for punt return, but he's not really a punt returner. There's not really an event in his past. So I don't know. I think he's just a guy that might have impressed them during the tryout. Again, they did bring in 4 guys yesterday and signed one of them, and it was him. So they saw something, but right now it's a practice squad guy, and I don't know if there's much more to read into it than that for now. We'll see if injuries at the wide receiver room happen or something moving forward, but for now that's probably all it is.
Cory Kinnan from Brownswire.com and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll hear from Jacoby Brissett about facing his old team. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Cory Kinnan from Brownswire.com. Jacoby Brissett talked about what he has seen from this Dolphins team on tape, that defense that he's going to face. Remember, Jacoby played with the Dolphins last year.
I still see a really good defense. A lot of the guys are back and with more experience in this defense. Guys playing at a really high level. Obviously, they're winning a lot of games, and they still got a lot of, I think, really playmaker style, game-changing players. And, I think they're playing really well still.
You didn't see much of Chubb in the last game, but do you expect to see a lot of him?
Oh, for sure. I mean, they paid him. They better play him, right? So I would think that he'll play a lot this game.
What about the significance of you going back to Miami, not only because of being there last year, but also just being from there and all that?
I don't care. I just want to go win. Yeah, that's where my focus is. I'm not really into the other stuff.
There's no Jacoby revenge game or anything?
They didn't do anything wrong to me. So, I mean, I'm a little too old to hold grudges if they did, but nah, it's not my style.
And Cory, again, you're looking for anything that would motivate Jacoby. He just wants to go win.
It's hard not to root for that guy. He's a gamer. Again, he was brought in here for in a circumstance that's very unusual in the NFL, and he's done nothing but embrace the city, embrace it. I mean, that's why you never hear anything bad about it everywhere he goes. He was beloved in Indianapolis. He's clearly won over his teammates here. So it's just really hard to root against the guy. And, I'm going to soak it in for these last 3 games that I get to root for Jacoby Brissett as the starting quarterback because he's played with poise. He's played better than I think any of us could have anticipated. And he's just an overall great guy to root for. So I'm happy for him. He's probably played himself into bridge money somewhere else to be a bridge quarterback elsewhere next season. So that's good for him as well.
Yeah, I would agree. He's been, if you would have told me Jacoby Brissett would play like he has in the first 8 games, I would tell you, man, Browns must have won 6 of them. And Here we sit at 3-5. All right, you did a preview for the Dolphins and Browns game coming up, and you kind of looked at some things, some units playing against each other. So let's run through a couple of them. Miami rush attack against the Cleveland run defense. What concerns you? There's where we're concerned. No, take us through that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a shock to anybody that Cleveland's run defense is 31st in the league. I like to use DVOA, which is a Football Outsiders number that measures efficiency. So it's not yards given up, or it's not a black and white number like that, but it measures efficiency. In a certain down a distance, in a certain context. How efficient are they? And again, the Browns fall 31st. I think a good sign for them is that the Dolphins are 21st against the run. So, but again, they've played pretty well against the run. I mean, they gave up a lot of yards against the Ravens, but the Ravens are the only team that are better at running the football than the Browns are. So, like, that's not unpredictable. That's not like unprecedented for them to give up yards against the Ravens. And then they played really well against the Bengals. So again, there's room to believe that might be, the optimist in me, but I've been a Browns fan my whole life, so I don't know where that comes from, but there's room to believe that maybe they figured something out, but the Dolphins don't have a super strong rushing attack. They went out and they got Jeff Wilson from San Francisco at the trade deadline, and he played pretty well in his first game. But nobody's going to sit here and cut it any other way than the Browns are a bad team against the run defensively. So the Dolphins should have opportunities to run the football.
Now you look at it, the Browns should also be able to take advantage of a Dolphins run defense they don't stop the run particularly well, and they don't stop the pass particularly well on defense, being the Dolphins, which you kind of like those two things.
Yeah, I mean, they score a lot of points, which is why they are as favored as they are and how they've won 6 games. So, but yeah, the Browns are going to have the ability to score points in this game too, and they're going to have to. Because again, the Dolphins are the best offense in the NFL right now, by any way you want to slice it. They can throw the ball against you at will. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle are absolute weapons. Tua Tagovailoa is the most efficient quarterback in the NFL this year. So the Dolphins are going to score points. It's nice to have Denzel Ward back and practicing. I don't know. I haven't heard anything about him officially clearing the protocol yet. It's nice to have Greg Newsome kind of playing a little bit better. It's nice to have Martin Emerson playing pretty well right away as a rookie, but they've never seen anything like this with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. It's an extremely explosive, extremely fast, and extremely efficient passing attack. So again, yeah, the Dolphins' defense they're not world beaters either. So we'll need more of the same of what we've seen from the Browns offense. And that is, they're a top 5 offense in efficiency. They can throw the ball at a top 10 clip, and they can run the ball at a top 2 clip. So the answer would be to not let the Dolphins on the field as much as possible. So that equals a lot of Nick Chubb. That equals the need for Jacoby Brissett to be his efficient self. We've seen kind of Jekyll and Hyde with Jacoby, but that means we need him to be the efficient version of Jacoby this week as well. I do think the Browns have a shot, but it's going to require probably scoring 30 plus.
Yeah, and the other thing that is really interesting is the way the Dolphins defense attacks the middle of the field with speed. And there's just a lot of grass there to cover, and they got a lot of guys that can run fast.
Yeah, so that's the issue. Again, you could say bring pressure. If you bring pressure, they're just going to run a bunch of RPOs and throw the ball where you vacate in the middle of the field. So if you run a lot of zone, they're going to run crossers at you and find space over the middle of the field. If you try to run a lot of man, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle can run by anybody. So it's really a multifaceted passing attack that you just can't game plan for. You just kind of got to throw a lot at them. Really got to know their tendencies on 3rd and longs, on 2nd and longs. What are they likely to run and try to combat that the best as possible? But they're going to get theirs. At the end of the day, they're just going to get theirs. So I think that's just something to prepare for, to expect. Is you can plan all you want, but the Dolphins are just going to get theirs, and they have all season.
So overall, what do you expect? You mentioned you think the Browns have a chance. What do you expect from this one?
I expect a lot of points. So, if there's close to 80 total points, that I won't be totally shocked. I think 70 actually is probably a more accurate number, 65, 70, somewhere around there total points. But so I expect a fun game, a lot of points. Man, I don't know. I think, with Burrow, they found success running a lot of cover too. So, muddying up the middle of the field and forcing him to throw the ball deep along the boundary. So where you're kind of limiting the pockets along the boundary. They might try the same thing against Tua Tagovailoa. You talked about how efficient Miami is throwing the ball over the middle. So it makes sense to run a bit of cover too. But this isn't a team that you can just bring pressure at will, because when you do that, you're leaving guys on island, and you just can't leave guys on islands against the speed they have. So at the end of the day, I'm expecting a lot of points. I don't know if I could give you a final score. That's a bold move to do, but again, I think the Browns have a chance. I do. And coming out of a bye week, we'll see how they suit up. So it'd be nice to have David Njoku back. Their second leading receiver coming into the season. So that'd be nice. I think he's kind of trending in that direction. They're not putting him on the field yet, but fireworks. I'll say fireworks. Just expect a lot of fireworks.
Yeah, that's fair. The other thing is you look at what's ahead. This game and the Bills game, do you kind of get the sense they're almost like divisional games? Because these are guys that, if you want to make a playoff run, these are guys that you're going to be in direct competition with for potentially one of those wild card games at the end of the season.
Yeah, with the Jets playing really well, these AFC East teams are going to be pushed to the wild card. It's wild. So, yeah, it would have been nice to get that one against the Jets in week 2. But, yeah, I think you kind of have to view it that way, and it feels unfair to view it that way when you do have to start a backup quarterback. But the Browns aren't in a position where they can make excuses. The Browns are in a position where they're 3-5, and they probably need 5 wins minimum by the time that Texans game rolls around to feel good about their chances of making the playoffs. Against the Bills, they might catch a break. We're in a position where maybe the Bills decide to shut down Josh Allen for a week or two, and we might get a Case Keenum revenge game in week 11. So the Browns are going to need some luck. The Browns are going to need to take care of the football, and they've done a good job of that the past 2 weeks, and they've won the turnover battle the past 2 weeks as well. So it's not impossible, but the Browns they put themselves in this position where they're going to need a bit of luck as well. So
yep, without question, these next 3 games are going to be huge. Cory Kinnan, as always, man, that was good stuff. Appreciate it. Hope you come back. Good stuff. Make sure you read them. Brownswire.com. Thanks, Cory.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate it. Anytime.
All right, Cory Kinnan. Make sure you check him out. Brownswire.com. Some really good stuff. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll hear what Mike McDaniel thinks about the Browns' defense. He's the Dolphins head coach. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Maybe cliche, but there's no I in team. The only identity that matters is we. The collective effort to love thy neighbor is needed now more than ever. The responsibility behind pronouns such as I, me, and mine impact we, us, and ours. So understand that you make all the difference in the team. He, him, her, or she can't disturb our peace, since we control our destiny as student athletes. This is the power of pronouns.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns. Mike McDaniel, first-year head coach of the Dolphins, talks about what he has seen from the Browns' defense when he looks at it, and also the Dolphins' approach to this game.
The thing about the NFL is it is a challenge. There's so many things at stake every week. And so every week's a challenge. One in particular is a lot greater than people realize. This Cleveland Browns team is no joke. They are a good football team. One of the only, the record is the record. Whatever this means is that I think they can beat any football team in the National Football League on any week, and you can't say that about every team. And it starts with their edges. I know Joe Woods and Chris Kiffin from San Francisco, and I can see their elements of coaching on tape. They strain, they go after it. I see this. We comb tape week in, week out, and we are definitely not sleeping on this team. This is a good football team that, if you aren't detailed and technically sound, they will expose you in a harmful way.
Let's welcome in Eddie McDonald from Dawg Pound Daily. And Eddie, you hear that, and this offense is really good for the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic, and it's one of the ones that you should be scared about. But to hear Mike McDaniel say that, and I love him as a coach. I love everything about what he's done so far this year. I love all the different answers he's given. Some, smart aleck answers. He seems like a down-to-earth dude and just knows the game of football. And he's right about the Browns. They do have a defense that is good, and this team is good. I mean, they are what the record is, like I said. But it's nice to know, and that's just coach talk. They're not going to sleep on any team. They're not going to do this and that. They're preparing for them as if they're, whoever. But he sees something that has happened the past 2 weeks, especially with this defense. They shut down Joe Burrow on Monday Night Football a couple weeks ago. And the week before that, they had a solid outing against the Ravens. So coming into that, I don't know why it took them 7 weeks to finally figure things out, but hopefully on the better side. But this Miami team is loaded on offense, and it should be a good test for them. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, the Browns coming off the bye. We had mentioned earlier in the show, under Kevin Stefanski, they are 2-0 off the bye week. Jacoby Brissett talked about what that self-scout the Browns did during the bye week showed them.
It showed of how much we've hurt ourselves and how much we have stopped us from scoring touchdowns and converting on third downs and big plays here and there. And I think that was the main key takeaway that I think we took.
And Eddie, the offense has actually been pretty good. It's really been the defense that I'm curious to see what they do coming out of the bye.
Yeah, what was encouraging about the defense, and I talked to Jacob Roach about this last week on my podcast, the fact that they switched around defense due to injuries and different things. Sione Takitaki played probably the best professional football game of his career, and with that, he moved to the Mike linebacker, and they gave John Johnson the green dot, which last year he also got the green dot late in the season when the defense started to figure it out. So we were both wondering if that was maybe an ego thing for him and why it took so long to do. But with him with the green dot, it helped. But with the offense, yeah, they've been tremendous. They're one of the top 5 or 6 offenses in the NFL, and that's with Jacoby Brissett. And then we still have 3 games with him left, and then Deshaun Watson comes, and this offense goes to another dynamic where they're not just going to sit and be like, all right, Brissett beat us. And then when he does, then that opens up, Chubb and Hunt to run. But the offense has been great. The defense has been lackluster, but like I said, the past couple of weeks, they've really stepped up their game. I know they lost to the Ravens. But that was a game they could have won, probably should have won. The Bengals, they've owned them in the Kevin Stefanski era. They've won 8 of the last 9 games, and Stefanski has never lost to them yet. So I'm very encouraged to see what happens this week, especially if Denzel Ward can come back. He practiced today, especially Wyatt Teller can come back this week. He also practiced today. They're not definitive starters for the week by any means, and they still could sit out. But it's encouraging on both sides of the ball. And, at 3-5, it's not the greatest of records, but it is what it is, and there's some things to build off of.
Yeah, and again, I feel like they got to get 2 of the next 3. If you come back 5-6, and then you get Deshaun Watson, let's see where that goes. Kevin Stefanski, and I watched almost all of the game last week. The Dolphins played the Bears, and it was apparent that the Dolphins were attacking the middle of the field pretty aggressively. Kevin Stefanski talked about this offense and how they do just that. They go after the middle of the field.
They do a really nice job. Quarterback works the middle of the field. Their route concepts are around that middle of the field, and when you do that, you're not going to run out of grass. You're going to not use the sideline, sometimes to your advantage as a defense. Well, when you work the middle of the field, you work in between the numbers, you can catch and turn and get yak. So they can do it from a shorter pass attack. They can do it from a intermediate and deep pass attack, but so much of it comes back to defensively being true to your rules, being true in your zones, in your mans, and then ultimately when in position to make a play, you got to make a play.
And the Browns defense is kind of set up to handle some of the speed in the middle of the field when Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who can run pretty well, is healthy. He did not practice, so that's a guy that that could create some issues for the Browns defense if he's not able to go. It'll also put some pressure on their bigger safeties. Delpit, John Johnson. They're going to have to be able to take away the middle of the field.
Yeah, and what the Browns lack is a true free safety. Delpit and Johnson and Ronnie Harrison, they're not really true free safeties. They're better close to the line of scrimmage, so they will have their work cut out for them, especially with Tyreek Hill leading the league in receptions and receiving yards. Jalen Waddle, he's right behind him. They've combined for almost 2,000 receiving yards this year, which is incredible. So they're going to have their hands full for sure. JOK not practicing today, that's a bit alarming. Hopefully it's just precaution. Hopefully he can be out there. But like I said, if Denzel Ward can come back, and I know everyone was giving him flack this year, and rightfully so, he did not play well. The game before he got hurt and then the game that he got hurt, he did play pretty well. So hopefully that's encouraging. I just hope he's healthy. But I have an article coming out on Dawg Pound Daily tomorrow, the storylines of the game. Can the Browns defense stop this high-octane offense? And that's going to be very hard if they don't have speed in the middle of the field, because Tyreek Hill is one of the best in the league at yak, the yards after catch. So it'll be interesting to see. Hopefully they can step up to the plate and, figure things out. But it's going to be an extremely daunting task with this offense.
Eddie McDonald and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. On the other side of the break, we'll hear how some former NFL players think the Browns should try to stop this Dolphins offense. We'll also see some predictions for this game. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Eddie McDonald from Dawg Pound Daily. Greg Jennings, former NFL wide receiver on the 33rd team, which is former NFL executives and players, talking about how the Browns need to try to stop this Dolphins offense.
Well, I'm playing Tyreek like a gunner on special teams. I'm putting two guys on him, and he can't get off the line. I'm sorry. I'm forcing everybody else to just beat me. No, but seriously, it's a matter of making sure that you beat them up front. Like, there's no coverage that's going to stop these guys. If their quarterback is standing up and he has a pocket and a lane to throw, you got to beat them up front. Like, so we can talk coverage all day. Man 55, man cover 2 man, that's probably the coverage that you would think guys could create some problem because you're in man-to-man, but you got safety help. But then you leave the lanes open for a quarterback that can actually run and use his legs too. So that's a threat. But you got to get pressure on the quarterback. You got to just talk to your guys up front. And guys, we got to get home this week, because if we don't get home this week, there's no way we can hold up on the back end. And how do we know this? Because no one has been able to hold up on the back end when Tua has time, and these two can just roam and run free.
Yeah, and Eddie, the other thing that he brought up that I think is going to be important, hands in the passing lane if you can't get home, because Tua does get rid of the ball pretty quickly.
Yeah, he's one of the best in the league at getting the ball out, 3-5 step drop out. And then, like I said, Tyreek Hill catches it and then runs up the field. Jalen Waddle does the same thing, or one of them can beat you deep. So he's absolutely right. The pressure has to get home. And we saw against the Bengals, the Browns' defensive line seemed to finally get it all together. Even, some tackles got in there and got after Burrow. They sacked him, I believe, 5 times. They're going to have to do that with Tua again, and not necessarily sack him, but at least disrupt him. And as you said, the passing lanes, the hands have to be up almost at all times. Even if they can't get home to Tua, they have to get their hands up and try and deflect the ball. We saw last week Garrett, he tipped the ball. It led to the interception against the Bengals. So that's exactly what they have to do. This is another one of those games where if Myles Garrett can do what he did the previous week against Joe Burrow, then this team will be in good shape to slow down this offense. I don't know if like Greg Jennings, I don't know if anyone can stop them, because no one has yet. They're just, an explosive offense, and they've bought into each other. The addition of Tyreek Hill has been one of the best in the NFL this year. But the defensive line has to get home. And with that, if they are getting pressure onto it, the secondary has to, complement them, because we talk about complementary football. And last week was the first complete game I think the Browns played where the defense complemented the offense and vice versa. This week, the defense not only have to complement the offense, they're going to have to complement each other, because the defensive line has to get home. And then if they do get home, and they don't bring him down, the secondary is going to have to cover the receivers.
So how good has Tyreek Hill been? You alluded to it. So this is from Pro Football Focus. He has the most yards from scrimmage this season. Only 2 players are over 1,000 already. Hill at 1,129, Derrick Henry at 1,010. So again, and Jalen Waddle isn't far behind him. So those are a good 1-2 punch for the Dolphins.
Yeah, it's a fantastic 1-2 punch. I think right now, honestly, it's the best 1-2 punch in the league. And before coming in this, just because the Browns are playing, I don't think so. I've seen a lot of them. I have Jalen Waddle on a couple fantasy teams, so that's nice. I've played against Tyreek Hill a few times this year, and it's not nice. But yeah, I think they're the best 1-2 punch. And then Tua this year, there's a lot of talk last year about him. Is he the man in Miami? Are they going to try and get a Lamar Jackson if he somehow leaves Baltimore? They're going to try and get whoever else. They stuck with Tua, and I think Mike McDaniels is the best thing to happen to Tua in the NFL. And so far, so good for them.
All right, let's take a look. This is from CBS Sports' Pete Prisco, his prediction on the game. And he predicts that the Dolphins will win this by a score of 34-27. Browns coming off a bye, a tough trip to face a hot team. Dolphins rolling on offense. Miami's defense isn't playing well. Look for a lot of points, but Miami wins it. It's hard to argue with that just because Miami has played well and has finished. Browns are playing better, but really the only time they've played really well is that game against the Bengals.
Like I said, that was their most complete game of the year. That is an accurate, score. It could be the opposite, obviously, of 34-27 Browns, because we saw last week the Chicago Bears, who aren't that good offensively, they're not as good as the Cleveland Browns offensively. But Justin Fields had himself a game. Had the most rushing yards by a quarterback in an NFL game. Really lit them up. He didn't do anything passing-wise, but he had chances to. And the Miami secondary isn't the greatest. And Brissett has played pretty well. And if he plays like he did against the Bengals, then that will open up the running game for him. So I think this could be another shootout. Last week, the Dolphins won 35-32 against the Bears. So we'll see if that happens this week. Hopefully the Browns are on the other end of it this time. But as you said earlier, 2 of the next 3 they have to win. If they want to have any sort of contention with Deshaun Watson, and that starts this week. You can't win, 2 games without winning 1 game. So that starts this week. You have to go 1-0 this week. That's a 3.5 point spread, I think it is, and then a 7-point game probably. That's in the 30s, high 20s. Yeah, that's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah, I would agree, and I would say this again: if they find a way to get a couple of turnovers, and they haven't been able to do that consistently. that will go a long, long way. A game they have to have, really, as well. Eddie McDonald, Dawg Pound Daily, as always, man. Thanks for the time and the insight. Appreciate it, Eddie.
Appreciate it. Have a good night.
All right, Eddie McDonald. Make sure you check him out, Dawg Pound Daily. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.